This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Well, good morning, everyone, and a happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Well, not really, is it? It is the holiday observed by the provincial and municipal governments in Newfoundland and Labrador. The real day, of course, is a little later on this week. But in the meantime, it was the long holiday weekend for a lot of people here in Newfoundland and Labrador, and we do like to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. David, did you take part? No? You're getting old now, are you? I know, I feel the same way sometimes. But be that as it may, it is a big holiday here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Tell us about your St. Patrick's Day weekend, PG, and any St. Patrick's Day traditions that you partake in is your opportunity to call us today because... as I said, it is a holiday for many people today, so it might be an opportunity to flick on the radio, have a listen, and share your stories with us today. Well, speaking of Irish traditions, Boston arguably has some of the finest Irish traditions in North America, aside from Newfoundland and Labrador, of course. And there's an awful lot of people shipping off to Boston. The Boston Seafood Show is underway, and it's an important event, of course, in which the province showcases its seafood products to the world. And the FFAW is up there, of course. I heard Dwan Street this morning, and she dropped an interesting nugget on your VOCM Mornings with Jerry Lynn Mackey that the union is not interested in sitting down with the ASP. She also indicated that the union is no longer interested in being involved in the price-setting panel, which arguably was set up as a mechanism to achieve a fair price for harvesters. But the FFAW has been very doubtful of that entire process for the last little while. Anyway, if you have any thoughts on that, it caught my ear. It raised quite a few questions in my mind. If anyone wants to chime in on that, now is your opportunity to do so. I see there's a great big Italian frigate in St. John's Harbour this morning. And yesterday I noticed a French patrol ship in St. John's Harbour. Anyone know what's on the go there? What's happening? I'd love to hear from you. I've seen some pictures of the frigate. It is a massive piece of marine machinery. So anyway, interesting to see it on this side of the Atlantic. You don't often see Italian military vessels in and around here, but I'm not entirely clear on, what their NATO obligations are and all those kinds of things. Anyway, if anyone happens to know what the Italian Navy frigate is doing in St. John's Harbour, and if it had anything to do with the French patrol ship that was in the harbour yesterday, that's not overly unusual, I would think, with St. Pierre and Miquelon so close by. But anyway, there you have it. Throwing it out there. If anyone knows, they can pick up the phone, give us a call. Well, I know one of the conversations that was that dominated the show last week with VOCM's Brian Callahan, great job too, by the way, Brian, if you're listening, is the trouble that people are having getting their mail. Have you had trouble getting your mail so far this winter? I know he had Craig Dyer on giving some of his thoughts on what's going on there, but some people still having a lot of trouble. I'm still waiting on a couple of things I need to do my income tax. Still waiting. So as are a number of people that I've been talking to lately. So it's a busy time of year, of course, in the mail. So if you're still having trouble, I know that the phones were going off the hook in the newsroom for the last 2 or 3 weeks since we had the storms anyway, with people who didn't even have their mailboxes shoveled out yet and were waiting on important checks and important pieces of mail. So anyway, what's the mail been like since the labor action came to an end? I'd like to hear from you on that. Well, crude oil prices, I don't need to tell you, soaring. It's reflected in gas prices. It's going to reflect on grocery store shelves. It's going to reflect in a lot of areas, isn't it? And U.S. President Donald Trump now trying to pull NATO allies into... some might argue, a war that he created, or trying to pull them into that war. And he wants NATO allies to form a coalition to help escort vessels through the Gulf of Hormuz and ease the energy crisis. NATO allies have been kind of slow to react. He's indicating that, there's something coming, but... anyway, that remains to be seen. But what a strange and unusual time we're experiencing right now in the world. It's distressing to say the least. I noticed Prime Minister Mark Carney, of course, making a lot of moves in light of what's going on, was in Oslo, Norway, meeting with his Scandinavian counterparts to form what they're calling a bloc of middle powers to influence world affairs. Few details are known at this time other than to reiterate their commitment to NATO. But of course, they do have some shared priorities. And of course, one of them being Greenland and its sovereignty. And a lot of Canadians feel that if the U.S. was to make good on these the posturing that U.S. President Donald Trump has been making recently in taking over Greenland, that it will just be, a house of cards. In other words, that the next thing to fall would be Canada. So Arctic sovereignty went from the back burner to the front lines, so to speak, in a matter of just a few sentences uttered. A lot of people have been talking about Arctic sovereignty for a very long time. I remember reading about this years and years and years ago, but we didn't seem to take it seriously. Now we are very much taking it seriously, and not because of the threat of Russia or the threat of China, but because the United States now suddenly is making moves, or appears to be making moves there, or is talking about making moves there. All very troubling, of course. So Arctic sovereignty, of course, very high on the agenda in Oslo. And the Prime Minister has been making some bold and some would say long overdue moves to build and modernize military infrastructure in the north. Ottawa will spend $35 billion total on 4 northern bases, including 5 in Goose Bay. Well, that's good news for Goose Bay and arguably all of Newfoundland and Labrador. In fact, Premier Tony Wakeham met with the Prime Minister not long after he was elected, back in the fall or early part of the winter, just before Christmas anyway. And the two discussed what this province can bring to the table in terms of infrastructure. Tony Wakeham says we have the workforce, we have proximity to the north and the North Atlantic, of course, and he feels that we're well positioned to address Canadian national security. So good news for Goose Bay. And, what an asset that is. If anyone's ever been, for people in Goose Bay, they already know it, of course, but for anyone who's ever visited Goose Bay, to see that huge piece of infrastructure just basically sitting there not being used was really, sad. And now we have the opportunity, I suppose, to see that come to fruition, that, finally the attention that Goose Bay deserves is going to be seen there. So anyway, if you have any thoughts on that, you are welcome to give us a call. The details, of course, we don't quite know yet. I noticed that the MP for the region is hinting at some pretty significant improvements to what is a pretty strategic location that's been left on the back burner for far too long. So anyone in Goose Bay want to give us a call, they're welcome to give us call. This is so what's good for the goose is good for the gander. What about Nine-Wing Gander's role? Of course, it always had a very strong military presence there as well. Are there opportunities there? Anyone in Gander wants to chime in on that, or anyone else? Give us a call. On the topic of air base assets, it appears now that whatever dreams that some may have clung on to for the future of Stephenville Airport have come crashing down. The airport assets are being sold off, of course, after what was one of the more unusual transactions and business plans many have seen. It started to become pretty clear in short order that whatever ambitious plans there may have been for that facility were not to be. And now the airport has lost its status. It's been downgraded to an aerodrome. And now a sale and investment solicitation process is underway. That means that the land, the buildings, the equipment, the furniture, and other assets there will be sold off. April 7th has been set by the Supreme Court as the deadline for those interested to submit a letter of interest. And it is a sad state of affairs for the town of Stephenville, no doubt. Also sitting on quite a significant piece of infrastructure there that has just been... you can't make this stuff up. If you had to write a movie script, you couldn't have come up with a more interesting plot line, arguably. And while we're talking about Goose Bay and Gander, similar to that here in St. John's, both towns recently introduced an accommodations tax to help generate revenue for those municipalities. Gander, of course, a central hub here on the island, and with quite a few hotels, could stand to gain as a municipality, but it does beg a few questions, which for which I don't immediately have the answers, and maybe somebody can help me out. I assume it also applies to Airbnbs, is my understanding, as it does here in St. John's, but I don't know that for certain. And in a town like Goose Bay, in particular, if you're going to introduce an accommodations tax in Goose Bay, my question is, does it unfairly penalize people who must travel to Goose Bay from the coast, for instance, for medical appointments and other important business? The cost of living on the coast of Labrador, I don't need to tell people, is not cheap, as we know. And Labrador is so vast that overnight stays are nearly impossible to avoid. So what does that mean? Hopefully we'll hear from someone with the town of Goose Bay in the next little while. Oh, and I got to throw this out. Sarah Strickland raised this with us on the weekend. What's going on with yogurt? Dave, do you know what's going on with yogurt? Apparently, there is a yogurt shortage. Who knew? And according to a sign posted in a local grocery store on the weekend, there's an unprecedented shortage of yogurt. The shortages are industry-wide, affecting multiple brands and varieties. Well, you might ask, why? It's a milk product. It's a dairy product. And there doesn't seem to be a shortage of milk. Well, it's not just Canada. According to a report in ABC News, I did a little Googling. That's the Australian Broadcast Corporation, by the way. The cause is increased demand. What's causing the increased demand, you say? Well, according to the Australian broadcaster, a couple of recent social media trends, including things like the so-called Japanese cheesecake hack, which involves just two ingredients: Biscoff biscuits, Greek yogurt. There you go, you got your cheesecake. The other is a greater demand for high protein with, a fitness trend that's on the go. That's good news, I guess, for yogurt companies, but they're having a real trouble to keep up with the demand all of a sudden. So good for them, bad if you happen to really enjoy yogurt, especially the little ones, right? We used to buy lots and lots and lots of yogurt one time. when my young fellow was much younger. And we don't buy as much as we used to now, as we did then. But, that would make it difficult, I would think. How do you explain to a 3-year-old you can't have your strawberry yogurt? Wouldn't be me. When we come back, we're going to have a chat with Janet McNaughton with Act Now on the ankle monitoring program that she's been talking about for some time. And we'd like to hear from you as well. Here are the numbers to give us a call. And we're starting the show this morning with Janet McNaughton of Act Now. Hello, Janet.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Yes, no trouble. So what brings you to us this morning?
Well, I just wanted to let everybody who signed the petition, and especially everybody who took the petition around, first of all, I want to say big thanks, and I want to let them know that it was presented to the House of Assembly. We had almost 1,500 signatures, and there are still more signatures coming in, and it can be presented again. And we just hope now that there's some forward movement on this, and we won't give up.
And have you got a friendly ear with the Minister of Justice?
You know, this is our 4th Minister of Justice and 2 governments in 2 years. Everybody's always made positive noises, and that's great. But we really need to see some actual changes. And ankle monitoring isn't just, it's not a standalone program. There's a bunch of fairly boring stuff that goes with it, like proper risk assessment, so you know which men need the ankle monitors. You don't use them indiscriminately. And also safety planning for the woman, so that it's just not the ankle monitor. She feels secure in her community. Prince Edward Island has a wonderful program that, has been in the media, and they haven't had a intimate partner violence homicide since 2015. So, there's a lot of moving parts, and I'd settle for any of them.
What kind of resources are required to keep up a program like that?
Well, Prince Edward Island has a small in-house unit that does their ankle monitoring. So it's a person who's a former probation officer is in charge of it, and then there's maybe 3 people, 6, so because it's 24 hours, right? That's a major investment, but you save money in terms of, court time, because breaches pretty much disappear with the people who are wearing these active ankle monitors. And then, the police aren't running around looking for someone. They can see exactly where the person is all the time. Now, people have talked about ankle monitors being removed, but there's 2 types of ankle monitors. There's the cloth strap, which is easy to remove. There's a stainless steel strap, which is not only, sorry, that was a Freudian slip there, not only tamper-proof, but if you try to tamper with it, it sends a message saying, I'm being tampered with. And there's a phone inside the unit. There's an alarm system, like a very loud siren. So if a person, for example, if the monitor's getting low and they haven't been charged, they can get a phone call through the unit saying you need to charge your unit. And, the people who wear these ankle monitors really hate them. They say they'd rather go to prison, but when you say, okay, that can be arranged, they always say, no, I didn't really mean that. In other places, there's a lot of problems with people losing their chargers, So, there are fixes for this. In Tasmania, where they did a really successful program in Australia, if you lost your monitor, you had to come into the station and charge for a couple of times before they'd give you a new charger. And that proved to be really successful in reducing the number of times people lost their charger.
So
all these things have been worked out in other places.
Right. So you say in PEI, for instance, a former probation officer is leading a little unit on this. But is it through the Department of Justice, or is it through the local police force?
It's through corrections, and they have a department called Corrections and Community Services. So I think it's sort of adjunct to justice, but their correction, every province organizes things differently. But it is like corrections is really involved in this, because it's often people on probation, sometimes bail. So they come, the unit actually comes to the people. If it's bail court, they go to them and fit them with the monitor. The main thing is that everything has been worked out in other places over a long period of time. And you can expect road bumps, If somebody goes into their basement, their signal disappears. And you need to know that that means they're in their basement and not that they've taken their monitor off, But these things have been worked out over time.
Is ankle monitoring used in other types of, people who have been convicted of other types of crimes?
Well, yes. So people who have been convicted, that's the key. So right now, we do have an ankle monitoring program, which is being used for people on probation or temporary absence, which is like when somebody has to go compassionate leave or to a hospital, and house arrest. That's New Brunswick. So they have it for people post-conviction now. So what we want is when you have violent and repeat intimate partner violence offenders who tend to obsess and won't leave a woman alone, you can put an ankle monitor on them so that the woman has a little bit of security. So this is like extending the program that we have for post-conviction to bail, which is, of course, pre-conviction. And, our justice system is extremely reluctant, we saw last week in the news, to incarcerate people who are pre-conviction because, of course, they're innocent until proven guilty. But when you have a situation where a guy is going after the same woman over and over and breaching, and if you look at the court dockets, the patterns really stand out. After a breach or two, it would be a really good thing for the courts to have the option, and nobody can direct the courts, but for them to have the option of monitoring these men so that the number of breaches go down. Well, actually, in Quebec, it's like 96% of the intimate partner violence offenders who wear these ankle monitors do not breach.
So it puts the onus on the offender instead of, once again, having to heap it onto the victim who has to watch what she does at all times and worry about that stuff continually.
Exactly, and stay in a shelter because she's too frightened to come out. So you get a situation where women can't come into shelters because they're full, and they're full of women who are afraid to go back to their own homes. And living in a shelter, shelters are great, but they are emergency shelters. They're not intended for long term. And it's hard. It's very hard to be in a shelter. The woman and her children sleep in a single room. They're shared bathroom facilities. It's very disruptive for the children who often have grown up in a situation where violence is just built into the fabric of their existence, and so they're very easily upset, and this is a distressing situation. They do better in their own homes if if we can provide them with security. It would save money, and it would provide more security for women who need to come into emergency shelters, and it would also really give these people peace of mind. I mean, it's very hard to live looking over your shoulder constantly, and we have women in our communities and children right now who are doing that.
So, Janet, the petition has been presented. What do you expect next?
Well, as I said before, we've heard a lot of positive noises, and I don't think there's any point in discussing discussions, but when we get results, we will be very happy to report on that.
Well, do keep us up to date, will you?
Thank you very much. We will, and we won't go away.
Thank you. Janet McNaughton, Act Now. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Right, bye-bye. What are your thoughts? Give us a call. We're going to go now to Dave. You're on the air. Hi, Dave.
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning.
Linda here in Grand Falls, Windsor. We got a doctor who's going to be retiring soon from his general practice, okay? And we know what it's like today to try to get a family doctor. And apparently, the doctor that retired, he finally got a doctor who would take over his place, over his patients, which is about 2,000. Her husband is also a doctor. He's working here in Grand Falls, Windsor. She's living here in Grand Falls, Windsor, but she had to go to work every day in Gander. Okay? So, the government used the logic that instead of letting her go on to take over this family practice, it's better for her to go to work in the healthcare system in Central Newfoundland at Gander Hospital. Now, I don't know what the politicians are saying and what they think about. They're all mentioning about healthcare. I mean, if you're sick and you go to outpatient, you can be there for up to 8 or 9 hours or longer, right? So why would you put another list of people, another 2,000 people on a list that got to go to emergency when they want to see someone instead of having to go to their own doctor? I don't know what's going on here, but Central Health, Newfoundland Central Health, that's the health board out of Gander, and our MHA, the health minister, and the premier. I'd like for one of them, or all of them, to phone and explain why that when we're looking for general practitioners, that they're not letting this doctor take over our practice in Grand Falls, Windsor. Where's the common sense there?
I'm not sure if it's a common sense thing. I think most people would agree that if a doctor is leaving and another one has been found, that that transition should be relatively painless. However, in the House of Assembly last week, I did happen to hear the minister, Leila Evans, respond to questions from Lisa Dempster about that the doctor that they've chosen has a provisional license, and so that means that they have to be supervised all the time, and that process cannot be accommodated just because of the number of bodies around, I suppose. I'm putting words in the minister's mouth now, but she's welcome to give us a call. But that's my understanding of what happened, according to the back and forth in the House of Assembly last week.
Well, anyway, I'm challenging these people to someone on the phone and explain what's going on, right? Well, if she's got to be with them, how come she can go to work again?
Again, I don't know. I don't have the answer to that, but that's right. What the minister mentioned in the House.
But I mean, and I've talked to some of this doctor's patients that you phone in, go to the media about it, and they said, well, once the government got their mind made up, they don't change. Well, I remember a few years back, they were going to move obstetrics from Gander to the Grand Falls Windsor Hospital. And the people that are around there complained that much and phone open line. They were on the media every day, different mayors, different councillors, you name it. And they changed their mind on that. So this is, right now medical care is not just a problem here in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's across the whole country. And to try to get a doctor, it's one of the hardest things in the world to get. But I'd like for Mr. Tibbs hasn't said a word about this, and that's our MHA. That's what gets me. Here we are, we're dying here for doctors. We're looking for everything for the health care. And we got a chance, and nobody's, it seems that all the doors are shut. But anyway, I'm challenging those 4 names, see when they phone in. And I'm challenging other people to phone in, too. And I'm also talking to our mayor, and he said he's going to phone in someday the week to talk about it. So I hope they do. So thank you very much, Linda.
All right. Thank you, David. All the best to you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye. Everybody knows what difficulty people can have in getting a family doctor, and the situation in Grand Falls, Windsor is no different, I suppose, than a lot of other places. As I said, it was addressed in the House of Assembly, and that they're working on solutions, but if there's anybody with an update on that, they're certainly welcome to give us a call. We're going to take a short break, and after that, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. We're going to go now to Melvin. You're on the air. Hi, Melvin.
Good morning, Linda.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
I talked to you a nice while back, probably about the home eating supplement program. I don't know if you remember.
Yes.
I know when I talked to you, the Minister of Transportation was coming up next, and you asked him, and he said, as far as you know, the same as last year, only probably I might have made a mistake in the application. You remember that?
I do.
Yeah. But so I told you I had a letter there back from the government, but this is why I call you now. I got the letter. I found the letter, right? And it said on the letter, your application for home eating supplement program received February the 10th has been reviewed. It has been demanded that your application cannot be processed at this time due to the reasons listed below. The rebate has been previously processed for this household in 2025, so they can't be going to get it in 26. Right, and the number there, the phone there. So I phoned the number, and Mrs. said, "You got it last year." I said, "Yeah, I'm talking about this year." She said, "Well, I don't know about this year. I don't know if there's going to be any this year." So, but that Minister of Transportation, he said it's going to be the same. He come up next after me, and he said the same as last year. Only probably I made a mistake in the application.
Right. So it's doled out retroactively. So the last year's heating season, you get paid for that?
I got paid for that last year, sending the application probably just say February month, I don't know, February or March, and I received the money in July.
Right.
But this application is sending for the year, because 2060, it said, I know when the Progressive Conservatives was running an election, they were going to eating rebate. I sure somebody announced it, one of the members, but according to this girl on the end of the line, she said, no, we don't know anything about 2026.
All right, I imagine that will all come out in the budget.
I don't know. I just wanted to let you know I had that letter, and that's what it said on the letter there.
Yeah.
So if you would get down to a member there, you could question them about it, see what they said. I know the other guy said the same as last year.
So last year, when you got your rebate, did you get, when you put in your application for last year's heating season, did you get acknowledgement right away saying, yes, you'll get a payment now coming up in July?
No, just put in the application, and then all of a sudden in July, just a couple of times I phoned and checked on it, and they said it's not processed yet. So then in July I got it, right?
Okay. So what is the hold up this year then?
Well, that girl, the number there, I called, she said, we don't know if there's going to be any give out this year.
She expressed doubt that whether or not it was going to go ahead. Yeah, well, of course, nobody would know because they don't know government's mind, if you know what I mean. This is a new government that's taken over. And I guess that's going to be all part of the budgetary process.
But I mean, when I talked to you before, the Minister of Transportation, as far as he knows, he said the same as last year, right?
Okay.
So he couldn't have known much about it either. So, it was the same as last year, because that's what he said. He said probably the same as last year, as far as I know. He said, but he could have made a mistake in the application, right? But I never made a mistake in the application. I got a letter here where he received it and went through it.
All right. Well, if anyone happens to definitively know whether or not the home heating rebate will be applied this year, they can let us know.
Yeah, like I said, you're talking to some of the MHS or something like that, you can question them about it.
Yeah. All right, great. Melvin, okay. Good luck with that. And if we get any more information, keep listening.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty.
You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Yeah, home heating supplement. A lot of people have been complaining about their light bills. And, of course, today, oh, my gosh, is it ever cold today? After going through a very short, mild spurt, we're back into the deep freeze again. We're going to go now to Roland. You're on the air. Hi, Roland.
Hi, good morning, Linda. Thank you.
How are you this morning?
I'm good this morning, but I'm calling in. Me and my wife been dealing with an issue with long-term care. Her mom has been in a long-term care home since November 2024. And to say that she has been abused and neglected is unreal. She's cognitively well. She's there because she fell and broke her hip, and she has mobility issues. She's bound to a wheelchair. And she's in a room. She's been in a room by herself for the past 9 months. And we've been told that they're going to put somebody in that's cognitive like her, that she can sit and talk to and stuff. And everything we've been told, nothing has happened. This past week, I got to tell this story. We had the RNC come to our home on Saturday night to do a report about the ladies in the room with my mother-in-law and the way she's been neglected. They brought her in last Friday. They left her there up until Sunday. The poor lady, I didn't see anybody there. Even the workers weren't around. We had to go on Sunday and talk to the workers. Finally, they came in. She's just been left there. It breaks my heart to see that happen. And I'm just wondering if anybody else got experiences like this, because no way, should anybody be left. Because in this state that she's been left in for a week, it's unreal. And my mother-in-law, like they told her that they're going to give her somebody that can sit in the room and they can talk. That never, everything like that seems like if you go in and you're asking or complaining about stuff, they go over it against you, and they to us, it's like you get shoved in a corner and forgot about. It's unreal. I don't think anybody should be treated this way. We went to seniors abuse. We put in a complaint because what's going on and stuff, and like you do your complaint and they say they're going to do it and you don't hear anything else about it, and nobody lets you know if there's anything happening or whatever. Like I said, it went to the point we called RNC because this lady, we were told she never had no family, and then we were told that she had family, and oh my God, it's unreal.
So let me try and get this straight now. So you guys contacted the RNC because you feel she's being neglected in this long-term care facility.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so how long has she been there again?
A week. But my mother-in-law's been in this long-term care home since November of 2024. Now, on Friday, she was a level 3 because they call it 2-person assist. But on Friday, they told her she's a level 2 now. She only needs a 1-person assist. So they're in the process, or somebody is hopefully, to get her in a personal care home. And that's what we're hoping for, that to happen sooner rather than later.
So your concern is that here she is relatively immobile, or immobile without some assistance, and cognitively quite well, able to converse and participate in conversation and that sort of thing, but unable to move around on her own.
Yes.
And you say she's just been left there. So she's been put in a room and I guess just left to... with her own thoughts, or I'm trying to follow you.
Yeah, and the people, like, they told us they were going to put somebody in the room that was on her level, that they could converse and talk and do whatever. But the people, seems like the people that they put there, and I'm not knocking people that are sick and stuff. Don't get me wrong, right? But what the home told us was going to happen has never happened. They always go against, because if you go in and you ask questions, they don't want that. Like, I get the feeling that if you went in there and you never complained and you were in bed and you didn't get out of bed, that's my feeling. It seems like that's the way they want it. If you don't complain, and the amount of money that these homes are getting, this particular home, we were told over the weekend, is getting $10,000 a room. So my mother-in-law's in a room, and she's getting, between us, and the government, we're paying $10,000 a month for that room. And the food, that's what we were told. That's what we were told. I can't name any workers because I don't want anybody to get
No, we don't want to do that.
No, we're not going. I'm not going to name the home either. But like the worker told us, she said it's $10,000. She said that's what this home is getting for your mom to be in this room. $10,000 a month. It blows me away. I mean, I said, oh my God. I said, you got to be joking. I said, and what you get, I said, and like they all know it. Like we've been there sometimes, and like the workers will say to you, something comes in for supper or whatever, and one worker in particular, she said to me on various occasions, she said, I would never give that to my mom. She said, oh my God, right? And like, you put your parents in a place hoping that they're going to be looked after. So I'm just wondering how many people are out there got nobody looking out for them, nobody, and no family members or whatever, and out there. Because we're experiencing with this particular home. My God, if it's going on everywhere else, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
It's a sad state of affairs to see how, a human being who has contributed and cared for others their entire life is kind of left in those circumstances when it comes to some long-term care and some personal care homes. Have you contacted the Seniors Advocate's office? I know the Seniors Advocate is in transition right now.
We put in a complaint with the Senior Advocate's office, and adult, offenders or whatever, we put in complaints there. We've been in contact with our MHA. He's trying to do his best. But same thing as us. I guess the roadblocks are there and stuff. Like, you got to sign numerous papers for anybody to intervene on your behalf, right? And we've reached out to the government. We're reaching out to trying to get a meeting with Legal Evans to talk about this. But like you said, it's terrible. Like, nobody, and I don't care who it is, nobody should be treated the way that these people are being treated. This poor lady, they brought her in last Friday, and up until yesterday, it breaks your heart. It breaks your heart to say, go in. I could tell you, like, I went in there one day of the week to see my mother-in-law in the morning. I dropped in with some stuff for her. And I stopped in the doorway, and I walked out in the hallway, and I said to one of the workers, I said, would you please go in there and cover this lady up? She said, what? I said, go in and cover her up. The lady was in there, in nothing but a hospital gown. And the worker went in, and she covered her up and stuff like that, right? And there's no need of it. I mean, like, they put her, they got her there, and my mother-in-law, like, she's there. She said, nobody comes in and sees her. She said, nobody drops in and sees her. She said, no, none of the workers. She said, they walk by the door. She said, but nobody will come in and check on her. We talked to the RNC, and Saturday night, we told them what was going on, and they asked us questions. They came to the house, and we done an interview with them. We told them everything, and they went up and checked her at the home and talked to my mother-in-law in the room with her, and they got a report gone in.
Roland, it's a sad state of affairs, and I can tell you're very emotional about it. We'll leave it there for now, but we'll see what others have to say. I appreciate your call this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Sad stuff indeed. When we come back, we hope to speak with you. And we're back. We're going now to Kevin. You're on the air. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Linda. Good morning.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good. I'm calling now not really to complain, but to offer suggestions.
All right.
So let me tell you a bit about my story. My friend, who is 91 years old, has really bad legs and some other health issues. Went into the health science emergency because his catheter was blocked, and it had happened more than once, so the nurse advised him to go to emergency. That man was in there for 15 hours, finally got treated and got the help he needed, but it's just that, I would think that their triage system would have some consideration for age. Now, I know he wasn't like life and death situation, but he's still old and he still have health conditions.
Absolutely. I can hear the distress in your voice. So you think age should be a component there?
Absolutely. Their triage system should at least consider it, if they don't already.
It's distressing to think about because, we're all heading there at some point. And if we aren't, our family members are. And just to know that, you hear so many stories, it really makes it feel as though people, once they reach a certain age, get shuffled off into the back corners. It's distressing.
I don't think that's the case, but I think what it is that he was just put in with a guy that was 40 years old, as an example. There was no consideration for age and disability there.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah, it wasn't part of the tree. So you don't think that that's part of the triage system?
I don't believe it is. If it was, it's not working.
Mm-hmm. And like you say, now he wasn't an emergency. Who knows what was going on that particular day?
Well, yes, I'm not saying that. It's just that 15 hours is a long time for an elderly gentleman to have to wait.
Yes, absolutely. It's an excessive amount of time for anybody, yes, regardless of their circumstance, but particularly if they happen to be, 91 years old. Just imagine. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Kevin, thank you.
And that was from 4 or 4:30 in the evening until I picked him up at 9:15 in the morning.
My goodness gracious! He spent the entire night there, sitting in an uncomfortable emergency room, no doubt.
Yes, and kudos for his caregiver,
mm-hmm.
because without being paid, she stayed with him the whole night.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, it's right.
Well, that's encouraging because, God love the people who go above and beyond,
Yes, absolutely. It's great. Anyway, that's my point. I don't know if it's considered, but I think it's something that should be considered.
All right, Kevin, you raise a very interesting point there. We'll see what others have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. Is age considered when triaging emergency situations? That's a good question. If anybody happens to know, if there's any, retired or people working in the healthcare system who happen to know what the triage system prioritizes, they can certainly give us a call. We're going to take a break now for the news with Sarah Strickland. You're listening to VOCM Open Line. And I never mentioned it off the top, but silver again, this time for Team Canada's Paralympic hockey team and Liam Hickey, Newfoundland's own. It's been a disappointing year for that level of hockey in Canada. Disappointing for Canadian fans anyway. That's 3 silvers now with the women's Olympic hockey team, the men's Olympic hockey team, and now the Team Canada's Paralympic hockey team. So anyway, if you want any weigh in on that, you can. And I did see, by the way, that because there were a lot of questions raised after the Olympic Games in particular, to see how Canada, which is a northern country, with all the prime conditions and the resources, one would think, to churn out some really extraordinary athletes, and we do. But a lot of questions were being asked about, how much effort we put into supporting our elite athletes. And I noticed that Prime Minister Mark Carney now is mentioning that he is going to be putting more money into those types of sporting programs. So if you want to weigh in on that, you certainly can. We're going to go now to Pat. You're on the air. Hi, Pat. Hello, Pat. Is Pat there?
Calling you my daughter is looking for an apartment. She is searching, and almost impossible to find a place. She is basically being on the street today if she doesn't have an apartment. I don't know what to do to help her. I'm at a loss. I'm living in a senior's apartment, and she is looking desperately for a place to live.
How long has she been looking for an apartment?
She's been looking for an apartment for a couple of months.
Wow. And there's so is there nothing out there, or is there nothing affordable out there, or nothing suitable out there? What is?
There's just nothing nothing suitable. She's been looking. She's looking for a place, probably Mount Pearl, Paradise, even St. John's. Doesn't matter. She's not able to contact the place and get a place to live. I fear if she's on the street, that's going to be the end of her, right? She's not a drug user at all. She's a very sensible person, and just needs a little apartment to live in. That's all she's looking for.
And what was she in up until now? Was she in another apartment?
She was in an apartment. I don't want to mention the name.
No, that's fine.
Because it's not a very appropriate place to be living. And
so she's leaving there of her own accord, or was she asked to leave, or are they renovating or something?
She has to get out of there because of the circumstances.
Oh, okay.
Of the area, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's been searching for a place and unable to find anything.
So, is cost a factor in trying to find somewhere suitable?
Cost is probably a little factor, not a great big factor, but certainly is a little factor. The rents are quite high, as you know. The rents are thousands of dollars.
And what is she looking for? Like a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom?
Anything
at all.
One bedroom, furnished, unfurnished. She has some furniture. She's not without. She has most of her furniture, but she could take a furnished or an unfurnished apartment. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
And does she have a pet, or is she a smoker?
No. She has a little cat who's quite ill.
Uh-huh. And she can't find a thing?
No. I can't find a thing. And my heart is broken.
Well, it is a conundrum, isn't it? And we hear these stories all the time, people having real trouble trying to find rental accommodations. I don't know what the current circumstances are, if they've freed up a little bit. Is it because she can't find it in Mount Pearl or Paradise?
No. She can't find one anywhere.
Wow.
I understand there's some new buildings opened up in Pleasantville.
Mm-hmm.
New apartment buildings. I don't know of any apartments other than that, right?
Yeah. Has she tried through NL Housing or anything like that?
They're working with her.
Yeah.
They're working with her, and they have been. They're quite good, actually, in giving her directions on how to do things and how to get around to places, right?
Yeah.
They're very good. But I mean, where does she live? Where does she live tonight, right?
Yeah, indeed.
Where does she live tomorrow? Next week?
Yeah. So she's already out of the apartment?
No, she's there, but has to move today.
Wow. Pat, keep listening. Maybe somebody can offer some suggestions there. Has she tried her MHA?
Yes, she did.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and I did call for her as well.
Okay. And no luck there?
No. So I'm hoping now by calling you at the radio station, I was hoping that it would get on the air, which it has, and that she might find something today or during the weekend or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, let us know how she makes out, will you? And stay listening, because maybe somebody will have some suggestions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Linda.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And a good question to ask as well is NL Housing. I know there were quite a few units as of last year, if you recall, that were still vacant, either in some form of repair or whatever the case may be. They Have they made any improvements in that regard since we've had the change in government? Are they moving forward with getting some of these vacant apartments open and available for people to move into? I'm hearing that there are indeed units that are vacant and should be ready to go, but people are still not moving in as quickly as some might hope. Anyway, if anybody knows that situation, or if the minister responsible wants to give us a call, here is your opportunity. We're going to go now to George. You're on the air. Hi, George.
Good day. Good morning, I should say.
Good morning.
I just want to make sure first that you can hear me fine.
I can hear you, yeah.
Not in. Okay, perfect. No, I just wanted to touch base and bring it to light, if nobody has done it recently, about home and auto insurance. I understand very well about the devastation that happened last year, and I'm sure that the insurance companies are paying out money hand over fist, we'll say, to help those who were devastated by the fires and any losses that occurred last year. But I just wanted to, like I said, reach out there and ask people to voice their opinions, let me know if I'm the only one or whatnot. But my insurance on my house that I've been in now for 20 years, other than normal upgrades and stuff like that, there's no big changes in my property or anything. And my insurance went up this year $2,600 just for my house insurance alone.
Wow. Have you spoken to your insurance company? Have they told you the reason why?
The location of my home. That's what I was told. And I said, I understand that I'm on the peninsula where I'll say the most devastation happened last year. I'm on the Trinity Shore, but I'm not on the Conception Bay North Shore. And nothing, like I said, nothing's changed in my home. Me and my family are getting by like everybody else type thing. And, we pay a good premium that we have without questions, without claims in the last 20 years. 0 claims on 2 vehicles. And that's leading into my other half of my concern is last year my son obtained his license, purchased his own vehicle with money that he made over the summer, and he has, knock on wood, 0 issues with his driving record, and his restrictions will be lifted in a couple weeks' time. As you know, with new drivers, they have a curfew. I was told by a couple of insurance brokers on the mainland who I spoke with over the weekend that they refer to it as the Cinderella license here in Newfoundland, because your curfew, you had to be home before midnight. But his insurance last year was $4,400, $4,200, something like that, as a new driver, which basically doubled our insurance last year and on our vehicles. And now this year, I'm told that his insurance is going up to $5,600. And when I tried to shop around, going to a new company, they consider him as a new driver in the most infant state, and they quoted me over $8,000 for his insurance.
Wow! So you're stuck between
my. Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, it's exactly what a few friends of mine have stated in the past, that it's legal extortion. If you finance a vehicle, you have a mortgage on your home, you have to have coverage, you have to have, proper coverage, I'll say. And if you don't have coverage, you can't finance. Or if you withdraw your coverage, repossessions start, and it's a whole other process. So basically, I understand that business is business. They lost money last year after profits because of the payouts that are ongoing now with reconstruction. But you can't keep hitting it to the taxpayers. Like, it's just outrageous. Like I said, me, my wife, 20 years in our home, pushing 30 years driving and 0 claims, 0 tickets, and I'm not bragging about that. It's just that that's the facts, and our insurance is just constantly going up. So I don't know if yourself or anyone else you know, or anyone who want to call in and voice their opinion if they received notice of renewal yet this year. Maybe I'm one of the few who received it because it's early in the year. But basically, I got 2 weeks to come up with a plan how to move forward on really it's over a $4,000 increase between my home and auto insurance.
That is extraordinary. And because, as they put it, you're in the area, you're on the Trinity South, in the Trinity South area.
That's the only explanation I got was the location of your home. And I said, well, I didn't move my home. It's been there for 20 years. So, what do you do, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people feared, when this was happening, they were fearing for the safety and the property losses to that entire region. But that's another thing that people had in the back of their minds is, what is this going to mean now next year on everyone's insurance? And I guess you're the first or one of the first to hear about it. I'd like to hear from others who may be either living in the area or elsewhere and see where their insurance is going.
Yes, and if there's anybody out there who can offer us a better rate, like I said to my broker, I said I've dealt with you for 20 plus years, and I hate to end business friendship, I'll say, but I'm to the point now with the frustration. It's not the financial part. The financial part is, well, like everything, you always come up with a way to manage it, but in the end, it's just the greed, as I see it, is just the corporations taking advantage of people who are willing to pay. And like I said, I understand the business side of it. I just don't agree with the fact that we keep getting this dig year after year. And like I said, is an issue. We understand the concerns. A lot of us are trying to mitigate those concerns. Hopefully this year won't be a repeat, but how far to go? If this year is another year is the same thing, does that mean next year my insurance is going to go up another $2,000 or $3,000?
Yeah, good questions all. George, thank you for your call this morning. We'll see what others have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Alrighty. Bye-bye. He figures his insurance is going up about $4,000 or so just because of what happened last year. And I know that we've had these conversations in the past where, let's say, for instance, there's a fire in the downtown area of St. John's, and then all of a sudden people can't get insurance downtown. And yet, there's a large number of people who live there. Anyway. Let's hear what you have to say. Give us a call. Dave tells me that off the air he received a call from someone representing an insurance company who was willing to give George a quote. So that's good news for him, hopefully. But what's your experience with insurance, particularly those who have been affected by the fires and those who weren't affected by the fires who may be getting their insurance renewals right about now? Are you seeing a big discrepancy in what you paid last year over what you're going to be paying this year over what you paid last year? Give us a call. Let us know what your experience is. We're going to go now to Paul. You're on the air. Hi, Paul.
Yes, hi, good morning. I'm calling this morning to talk about triage in the ER. I understand there's been a couple of callers on that this morning, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I'm a victim of that whole phenomena. I actually waited in the ER with a heart attack for 8.5 hours. I left one hospital, went to another. I flatlined, I died, and fortunately I was brought back to life. So I'm able here now to talk about the whole experience, and I'm just calling in now to share some thoughts. I don't want to specifically talk about what happened to me. I'm over that, and I don't think that's the way forward. And I know everybody who has experienced issues in the healthcare with the waits and everything else, it's very traumatic, it's very emotional, and they're just compelled to speak about the details. But I think what we need to do as a people and as a country in trying to solve this is we have to collectively get together. We can't be finger pointing. We can't want to call people out. That's not going to solve the problem. There's been a lot of news articles about this dilemma recently in the paper, on the TV. And what's surprising to me is we haven't heard any of our health leaders come forward. We haven't heard any provincial health ministers or federal health ministers come forward. And even the public safety minister, I mean, believe it or not, we have people dying in hallways. I mean, this is almost a public safety issue now. I mean, Alberta has taken some steps to do an inquiry, but I think it needs to be more encompassing throughout the nation. And what we have to first do is eliminate the finger pointing. We have to empower people to come forward and want to speak about this, and want to speak about the issues without any fear of reprimand, without any fear of losing their jobs. And I've spoken to many nurses and doctors who say, look, I'd love to come forward and speak about this, but I'm afraid of losing my job. And I mean,
so what's the issue then with the triage system if people with a heart attack are flatlining, if you know what I mean?
Well, there are many issues with the healthcare system, and there's so many items that are non-conforming. And the question is, when you get into the analysis, before we even get there, we have to start talking about it. And nobody's coming forth and talking about it. Like I said, we haven't heard from our ministers. Nobody wants to do anything about it. I mean, we're 20, 30 years with these issues with the long waits in ER. And people have consumed their entire careers with this phenomenon, and nothing has changed. I mean, it's crazy. So we somehow have to fix this problem. And I think one of the things that's keeping us from fixing it is people are afraid to come forward. And we've got to stop the finger pointing. We've got to eliminate the political partisanship. And collectively, everybody who's been touched by this needs to contact the ministers and say, step forward and help us. And create an independent third party, do a very top-down, bottom-up kind of analysis, get into a procedural finite method element analysis, and I mean, pick it apart, because there's more than one root cause to all of this. There's many, many, many different issues in the healthcare system, and we need to create a plan, and we need to rank all of these risks and strategically go at them and solve them. While we're finger-pointing and pointing fingers, it's just not going to happen.
It's complex for sure, and there is a lot of things that are contributing to that. One is, the shortage of family physicians. Another is, lack of beds in long-term care homes. There's, the list goes on and on. But it seems amazing to me that we open up, like, let's say, for instance, this urgent care clinic in the east end of St. John's to for all intents and purposes, shift people who might have a sprained ankle out of the ER system and into this other system. And yet, if you don't show up there, at 6 o'clock in the morning to make sure that you get in, you don't get an appointment that day. It's extraordinary. What's going on?
Exactly. That's a rhetorical question without some sort of detailed analysis. And that's a question that I said is decades old. What's going on? How come we can't fix this? And I think somebody has to take the leadership to resolve this, to eliminate the finger pointing, eliminate the political partisanship, and we all get together and say, we have a problem and we have to fix it. We all know what the symptoms are, as you just mentioned, a few of them. We all can speak to that, but how do we eliminate them? How do we make them go away? And to me, that's the confusing part, right? So I just wanted to call in and speak to that in that perspective. I know people want to speak about their own specific experience. I don't. I want to speak to how we can solve this, how we can all get together and do something different and correct the problems, because we have the knowledge, we have the capabilities, but something is keeping us from doing that. And I think it's people just fearful of their jobs, fearful of the reprimand, and nobody, no politician wants to stand up. I mean, because to stand up and say, well, this is the previous government's problem, and that's just not an acceptable political position to take. No. But that's what's before us, I think, right?
It also seems to me that, you hear people, you've been through this situation and through the system, and people who have been through the system tell me that, you hear one thing from the frontline workers who are dealing with you on a daily basis. You might say, wow, it's really busy here today. And then you get an earful from people who are working the system saying you have no idea. And yet the messages that we're getting from the management or the higher ups or government or whatever the case doesn't reflect what they're saying on the front line. So, why aren't we hearing more about what is actually happening?
Well, I don't communicate all that well with each other. What caused me to come forward recently was a supervisor in the ER on the news saying, we need to correct things here before people start dying in the ER. And I was listening to that thinking, what? What do you mean before it happens? I said, it already has happened. How come you don't know about that? And then keep in mind, people that we're talking about government and people that are in the boardrooms and high up, they're defensive. They don't want to say there's a problem. And to my point earlier, and they need to step down and just take accountability of what's going on and say, we've got to fix it. And, they think if they don't defend themselves and say there's nothing wrong, they'll be held accountable and they might lose their jobs or whatever. I don't know. It's a behavior that I think is systemic and is a root cause to our problems, because until that attitude is changed, nothing's going to get fixed.
Paul, we'll see what others have to say. Thanks for your call this morning, and I'm glad to hear you sounding so hale and hearty.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. You have a nice day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we hope to hear from you. But Paul raising some interesting points there, and hopefully now some real movement seems to be finally being made in getting nurse practitioners to be able to build the MCP system, so that maybe that will free up some of these very severe needs that are out there, people just not able to get in and see a family physician or a nurse practitioner. Give us your thoughts. So the House of Assembly has been open now for a little while. Is it 2 weeks already? And a lot of the MHAs getting used to the way that is unfolding. They had a pretty rough first week there, if you recall, with some admonishments from the new Speaker of the House, Paul Lane. But it's an interesting situation because you've got a lot of MHAs who are complete rookies, brand new to the role. And then you've got a group of MHAs who are maybe a little more seasoned, but are in completely different roles this time around with the switchover in government and the like. And as far as I know, there's only two people in the House of Assembly whose roles haven't changed that much. One is Jim Dinn, of course, the leader of the NDP. The other is Eddie Joyce, who's joining me now. Hello, Eddie.
Linda, how are you?
I'm good. So what do you make of this new configuration in the House of Assembly? People are finding their way still, I think.
Well, it takes a bit of time to adjust. I said it, and I said it publicly, is that the Liberals find it hard that they're not in government, which is normal. And the PCs are finding that we are government and we're held more accountable than we were if we were in opposition. And that's just normal. Sometimes it gets a bit raucous, and like I said in the House Assembly after the third day with the Speaker, when Jim Dinn rose on a point of order, is that it was getting personal. Like before, you could hear some chirping back and forth, but it was getting a bit personal. And I think after that, people understood that we got a role to do as a government and an opposition, and there's a certain way to fulfill that role. And when you, like a few PCs asked me, and I said, just remember one thing, you're in government, you're going to be held to a higher standard, and every time that you're not because of chirping and because of loud back and forth, it's your premier who got to answer it, not you. and it's going to take time to adjust, but people are adjusting to it, and it's going good the last couple of days after Speaker Lane had a few words for everybody. It's really going good, yeah.
And he's getting adjusted to the role as well, because there's a lot of responsibilities that come with that.
Well, Paul is used to, and so am I, used to being in House of Assembly and listening to that going back and forth. But now Paul has to adjust to his new role that, okay, you allow a certain amount, but when do you say, okay, enough is enough? And I think Paul has realized that, and I know Paul has spoke to the House leaders and said, look, I'm going to start naming people, and once you name a person in the House of Assembly, then that person can't lose speaking privileges for that day. And then you're asked to, once you stand up named, then you know you can't speak. So it is a kind of a role of a speaker, which you need a bit of time to adjust, and Paul is adjusting pretty quick. I spoke to him several times on it, and he's willing to keep the House of Assembly under control, which I think it has been the last couple of days, to be fair to everybody.
It has. Things seem to have, eased off a little bit there in terms of the, like you say, the chirping. And somebody said to me the other day, "What is chirping?" It's catcalling, I guess, or
it is, yeah. And sometimes there's a bit of fun because you say something while someone's having a speech, or you say something which is fun, but sometimes it gets kind of personal, and and then it gets out of hand. Once it gets to that stage, then it gets out of hand. Like I was with a bunch of guys with the PCs, Darren King, Keith Hutchings, Paul Shelley, and a few more the other night, and we were chatting about this. And I remember one day I stood up and gave a speech, and I said I used to box a bit. And one of the boys sang out, "That's why you hate bells. You might get knocked out. That's fun. That's laugh." But when you get it personal that you said this or you did this and you didn't do this right, then it gets really personal.
And I understand there was even some chirping about what people were wearing?
Oh, yes, yeah. Yep. And then, like, I'll just give you a good example. I voted against the amendment. I voted with the government last week. And here I am, an independent, standing up, doing what I think is right, voting for some, and it was on a private member's amendment to a private member's motion, which was a great amendment, private member's motion that was put forward. And I got chirped because why don't you go join the PC caucus? I mean, like, I could just don't stop. Like Pam Parsons, say, why don't you go join the caucus? Like here I am as a independent doing what I think is right, and I get chirped at. So I don't mind that though. That's private lines, that personal, and there's only just like one thing to do, and that's fine.
Eddie, do you find that some of the new, especially the new MHAs, are coming to you and say, okay, so how does this work now? What am I supposed to do here? Or what would you suggest? Is this normal? Those kinds of questions?
More on the PC side. There's a few Liberals that I speak to when they ask me questions, but more on the PC side. They come and say, well, what do you think it is? Or how do you handle this situation? Or like what happens in this type of situation? And more on the PC and some on the Liberal side. And not as many, of course, with my differences with the Liberals. And, I was part of the party and I'm off, and there's still some there with the history, but there's some rookies that come to me and ask me questions about stuff, and I like a good example. I went over the other day and patted Paul Pike, the member for Bjorn Presentia. Bjorn, I said, the best speech you ever gave in this house. I mean, he got up so passionate, and it was on the private members motion that he gave such a great speech. But like that's the kind of thing. We got a history with him, a few others, and a lot of the PCs that I know personally too. And they come over and say, well, what do you do in this type of situation? Like, what happens after this bill goes through the stage? And that's part of it, asking questions about it and asking for a bit of advice on how to go about it. And I got a good rapport with the PCs because I know a lot of them. A lot of them are in opposition. I always had a good rapport with the Liberals, It's a bit different now. They're in opposition, of course, but I can work with any party, and I think they all know that. And Linda, there's one thing that I've always done, and people know it on both sides. Like, I ask questions in the House Assembly. I always give the minister questions. Like, I don't feel like I have no role. Even when I was with the opposition Liberals, I have no urge to try to embarrass someone over a question. I want answers. I'll give you a good example. Last week, I asked the Minister of Health, and I gave her the questions. And I said, here's what I'm asking on Wednesday. It was about nurse practititioners. And she got up, give her credit, and said, yes, we're going to have a pilot project. It's on the news today. And that's where it all, I've been pushing for it. The former Premier I asked the former, who is the Premier now, when he was in opposition, he stood up publicly and said, we will allow nurse practitioners to build MCP. So I asked the minister in the House, I gave her the questions, and now, come April 1st, this is the way I think government should be working, not so much to say, oh, I got you. I want answers. I don't want to just someone to say, well, she couldn't answer that question or he couldn't answer that question. I'd rather get answers to help the people out off the West Coast. And a lot of people, when I was in the Liberals, said, well, that's not right. I said, well, I'm going to do what I think is right. And now, even with the Liberals was in the last government, I did the exact same thing. I gave everybody the questions that I was going to ask. Here's the question I'm asking today. And I'm doing it now. And that's more appreciative the government to realize that I'm working with the government. Now, we're going to have disagreements and arguments and different points of views, and that's normal. But when you work with governments, I find, and there's a few people now in the Liberals saying that, geez, that's a good way to do that, you know? I said, I have no need to try to embarrass somebody, but I have a bigger need to get answers to help out the people in the Bay of Islands. So that's starting to rub off a bit on a few people in the Liberal caucus.
Do you find it freeing to be an independent member as opposed to, representing any particular, banner or color?
Well, I've always had the habit of speaking my mind anyway. Even with the caucus, I always spoke my mind if I thought something should be changed or different. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But I've always had that way to speak. But even when I was with the Liberal caucus, and we were in opposition, now going back to 2003, 2011, I always gave the PCs the questions. Like, I did not want to embarrass them because you don't get the answers. So I've always done that, no matter if I was with the Liberal Party or independent. And for me to be free in the caucus, I always spoke my mind when I was with the Liberal caucus and in Cabinet and with the party itself. And that's the way I've always been. People, of course, in the Humber Bay of Islands appreciate that because they know that I'm standing up for their issues. Plus, even with the former PC government, with this government, they know I'll work with them, that I will work with them for the betterment of the people. And I can see a few Liberals starting to understand that now, that there's life after politics. It's better to help the people in your district than get a headline in the news. And I think that's starting to people understand that sometimes politics is better to work with people than against them.
Eddie, Joyce, thanks for your call this morning. Have a great day.
And Lynn, thank you very much for. And the other thing, and I'll just close this off. The other thing that I feel, and a few other people after bringing it up to me, is I give a bigger history, a longer history of a lot of things, how things happened going back 10, 12, 14 years ago. Like, for example, the Liberals brought up the other day how the PCs...
We're well overdue for a break. Sorry, Eddie,
okay.
But if you could wrap it up in just a few seconds, that'd be great.
Just about the Muskrat Falls. Like I said, there might have been one member there with the Muskrat Falls, but keeps thrown in place. Well, you voted for Muskrat Falls. I don't think there's one member, I think, voted for it. That was there. There wasn't another person there. So like I said, that's a dead horse now. We got
right.
that
Let's
happened.
move on, in other words.
Yeah, let's move on. Linda, thank you.
All right. Thanks, Eddie. Bye-bye. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. We're going now to Dave Callahan. You're on the air. Hi, Dave.
Good morning, Linda. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad for a Monday morning, you know.
Good to hear.
And the hoping for the start of a good week. And we got to hear you first thing on the open line this morning, which is a good thing. Love hearing your voice and your input into the topics of our province. I've got an interesting one today as I woke up and, of course, read the VOCM news and whatever for first thing in the morning, that there's another community looking at implementing these tourism taxes, supposedly under the guise of helping to grow tourism markets and I guess tourism opportunity in their areas by using this tourism tax. And I guess basically it was one that must have come about from the accommodations industry, because they specifically said like all short-term accommodations, which I mean go from motels, hotels to Airbnbs and whatever, must pay these taxes. I've noticed that the entire tourism industry isn't doing this. It seems mostly stemming from accommodations. So I would have to caution the use of such things, and I'm not speaking only as a business person. I'm speaking as a private individual who now, when you go to spend your tourism dollar, you're going to be gauging a lot of things, and of course, with recent events, the cost of this trip is going to be a factor. That's been certainly, I guess, damaged by the huge raise that we're seeing in fuel prices, which there's where it starts, and then it flows downhill from there, because fuel prices affect everything from your transportation onto this province. The restaurants that you will go to will have higher food prices because they're going to have to pay much higher food prices coming as a result of these fuel hikes and fuel surcharges and whatever.
So, Dave, we're up to news time now, but I want you to finish those thoughts, because you're raising some really good questions about, municipalities introducing these types of accommodation taxes. I think we've had them in St. John's for quite some time now. I stand to be corrected on that, but now Gander is introducing it, and Goose Bay apparently is doing the same. Yep. So let's hear what you have to say after the news, shall we?
No problem.
All right, I'll put you back on hold if you don't mind, and we'll come back to you right after this.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
And we are back into the final hour of the program. Lots of interesting topics raised. And if there's anything that you heard that you want to chime in on, or if there's a topic that hasn't been raised that is burning at you and you got to get it off your chest, well, here is your opportunity to do so. Now, just before the break, we were talking to Dave Callahan. And Dave, you were just getting ramped up there about the accommodations tax and the potential impact, if I heard you correctly, on tourism in the province?
Exactly. We've already got a myriad of factors that affect people before they choose Newfoundland and Labrador as their tourism destination. And these things are stacked against us now. Seemingly have been since COVID. And I would probably say that in its own regard, the accommodations industry in this province has already got a big enough black eye for how they operate and what they do. They've almost got the basic persona now of organized crime. I mean,
that's kind of harsh. What do you mean by that?
I'll just justify it this way. I've been going back and forth to the city since early fall, visiting my son who's in there doing a course. And I've used the exact same bed and breakfast company and Airbnb company, booked online, same as always. 3 trips in a row, the bill was $600, $605 for the same accommodation, exact same house. Then comes the Briar. And it went for the same period of time, same number of days, from $600 to $1,900. Now, you call that whatever you want. But you could say, oh, supply and demand. Yeah, but supply and demand is not supposed to mean about a 300% increase in price from one week to the next, and then, okay, you can't get nobody the week after that, we'll drop her back down. That's the kind of image that they're giving everybody. And right now, what I can see in exactly what's been going on and the way that they're presenting these tourism taxes, they're being driven by the accommodations providers. Again, particularly in Gander, in this particular one, and now Goose Bay is another one, if they don't realize...
But it's the municipality that's imposing the tax. It's the municipality, arguably, that's going to benefit.
I would suggest to you that no matter who's going to benefit from it, it's an absolutely foolish time to be doing it. I mean, it might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. People are realizing, well, higher costs to go to Newfoundland for everything from gas to food to transportation, everything else. Now we're going to toss this on top of it. If these municipalities are doing this, for one thing, municipalities, keep your nose out of the game of business, run your town. You're not supposed to be the ones who are driving this. As a matter of fact, I would say you'll be driving people away by doing this. And there's other people in the tourism industry that don't benefit from whatever this is doing, such as the providers of the entertainment once you get there, the different types of tours and things that people take. This will all be affected if people don't come. So basically, fuel costs are one of the major hurdles that everybody has in their lives. But I don't think that it should be offset for any particular part of the economy or the providers of the whole experience of coming to Newfoundland if one end affects the other. And literally, there will be fewer people to avail of the different types of things that they do when they get here. They won't come, so even everybody down to the local convenience store is going to see a less of a dollar from the tourism initiative. I think the communities that would like to shine in this environment at this time would be the ones that were saying we're doing everything to avoid that. We're not going to make this a situation we're going to try to expand, like if it's a municipal effort and they're going to get the accommodations to charge this tax that goes back to them. You got the wrong people running your town. They're not thinking straight.
Well, it's not unique to us, of course. Accommodations taxes have been imposed in lots of places, including St. John's, if I recollect properly. I'd like to know what the city of St. John's makes on accommodations taxes and how much and where it goes.
Well, I'd also ask the question, how much money are they making on it? Where does the money go? These are all great questions, but I can assure you one thing, we haven't seen too many attractions that have been improved or initiated by the city of St. John's. Nothing that I knew I know of that's city-based that makes a great big reason for me to want to go to St. John's. So they're basically availing of a tax that's probably not delivering a lot back to the taxpayer because they charge it. These are the type of things that we can't condone any longer. And maybe there's also, at the same time, something to be said for, if we're going to save this tourism industry and save the business for Marine Atlantic and other such entities, we can't price people away before they get here.
Now, there's lots of other towns that have accommodations taxes as well. I just learned that Bonavista has one as well. And if they're imposed by the municipality, it should help the municipality, one would think, because municipalities are struggling to find ways to, provide the services that they provide.
Yeah, I can give you an example. If you've ever gone somewhere and you leave in this country and they make you pay an exit fee, if I had known that, I probably wouldn't have entered. PEI does that. They don't charge you to get there, but they'll charge you to leave when you go across the Confederation Bridge, which is basically an extension of the highway. The same thing affects our ferries. It's just, it all comes down to just hauling moral to the everyday individual's pocket, and this is not the time to be doing it. It's at a point when inflation has gone crazy, value of our dollar is dropping, blah, blah, blah. The price of everything in our lives has risen. If you want people to come here, don't scare them off before they come. And I think now that we're finding out there are other communities that charge this tourism tax and whatever the case may be, well, maybe I'm not going to Bonavista this year either. I know St. George's doesn't charge one, so I don't know why they do. They don't provide anything anymore unless it's done through private individuals for tourism, I would argue, than any other community, including St. John's.
Dave, let's hear what others have to say. I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, what are your thoughts on that? Accommodations tax, would it factor into your travel plans or your vacation plans? 4% in some municipalities, and of course Gander now introducing it. St. John's already has it in place. Bonavista already has it in place. I'm not going to name all the communities because I don't know them all. But now Gander and Goose Bay are introducing accommodations taxes, and maybe MNL has something to say on that. We're going to take a short break. We're into the last hour of the show. Lots of interesting conversation. Anything you want to raise or anything that you've heard that you want to talk about, give us a call. And Dave Callahan mentioned a leaving town tax. It put me in mind, of course, of The Simpsons and Mayor Quimby. If you don't know, I'm a big Simpsons fan, but with the film producers who come into town to do that Rainier Wolfcastle show or movie, and they said, well, we got to leave town now, but all we got is $1,000. And Mayor Quimby pokes his head up between the two of them and says, there's a $1,000 leaving town tax. Anyway, I thought it was funny. We're going to go down to Mary. You're on the air. Hi, Mary.
Good morning. Nice to hear you.
Thank you.
Back on the air. I just want to comment on the first, I think it was the first man that called in regarding the long-term care. And from what I could, from what I heard him say, he talked about the things that it seemed to be neglect, poor care, and a big problem with the complaint system. Now, from my experience, he is so right, and I agree with him 100%. Also appalled that such conditions still exist. Like after the AG report, the horrible AG report that came out, the conditions that were described in that, so it's not just one individual. Some of the conditions in that even suggested that there was a criminal case. And why are we still hearing people complain and have no way really to express their concerns? Like, what is happening in the long-term care system to the elderly in long-term care system, which is actually us tomorrow? It's much the same as what happened in Mount Cashel. Like, there's things going on that is not right, and there's no way to get anyone to, at least no simple way to get anyone to address them. Like, there's no oversight agency. I mean, to have any kind of a residence where you have vulnerable people with no voice and at the mercy of strangers, and not have an oversight agency, I think it's just terrible.
A lack of oversight is something that really does need to be addressed. Are you hearing anything from the current government in regards to having that need met?
Well, I do have hope in Minister Evans. She did say that she was going to address this issue, and I know there's a lot on the plate, and I know that there's a lot of complaints with the with the health system itself, which the other gentleman called in about, which is really bad too, but in the long-term care system, these people have no voice, and they're so vulnerable. And we do not have an independent health advocacy agency, like with the mandate to investigate and hold person or place accountable. And until we get that, I mean, by not doing anything, like there's just the conditions just is a creeping neglect, and it is just so awful to even think that this is still happening. And I noticed, and one of the things you said to the gentleman was, well, did you report it to the seniors advisory? The seniors advocate. Like, the seniors advocate is a myth. Like, they do not follow up, investigate, or support individual causes. They're there, to me, useless, because all they do is talk about system issues, which will correct itself anyway. But there's so many people think that the seniors advocate, this is what your first step would be. And that's disinformation that is put out there. And I really think it's intentional so that the public think that there's things in place, and there's not. It's the same way with the seniors NL. Now, I mean, I'm sure they do good work, whatever they do, but they do not have the mandate to advocate or investigate anything. And if there was an independent health advocacy agency, which you or I could go to and lay your complaint to what is happening, the issue would be addressed in a timely manner, and correction would take place, and it would roll up and correct the system. But right now, the whole health system is rather complex, and even when you work in it, like I did, there are so many parts to it, and several departments impact on it. You just cannot get. Personally, right now, I am now 4 years still writing letters and getting delayed, denied, and this kind of a thing. And it just goes on and on. Now, because I am persistent, and I have advocated for the elderly for all of my career, I will certainly do that. But not everyone has even the knowledge to know what is going on inside the system, and they keep changing the rules. And the system is designed to protect itself.
And it seems to me, Mary, like just based on what I hear on this show, is that you don't know until you know. Until you have somebody in a long-term care situation, you don't know how the system works and what your loved one is actually going to face.
Oh, it's so true. And even then, if you have a loved one in there, like, and you have your daily life, so you are lucky to even get in maybe once a day or at a certain time. You don't see what's going on underneath the covers. You can't even like the simple things like in my case I requested, things were so bad that I requested a chart, and it was appalling what you saw there. Like, why isn't the chart available on easy to access? Yes, you can request to access your relative's chart. But wait, you have to wait until they have time for a staff person to sit down to explain things that you would not know. Like, I mean, how stupid. Like, fine if somebody wanted, but if I want to sit down, so that's what I have to do to even look at the chart, which should be available any time of day or night that you wish to see it. But when you have a case, which I did, I had a case that I spent the whole day there, because of a number of issues. There was, the health part, and also what I saw was the neglect and to me, abuse that was ongoing. That I just you don't see what's going on even when you go in. And the other thing is. I guess you hope and you think that your loved one is in a safe and caring place. I mean, it's hard not to, because if you don't think that, how could you ever leave them there? And which was actually what happened to me. I actually removed my relative from the place. So, and there
did you have an alternative for them? Was there somewhere else you could take them?
Oh, I cared for them at home.
You took them out of it altogether. I had the
knowledge and the resources to do that. Not everybody does. So you have to, and like the man said, they want you to be there and not complain and not say anything. And if you do, then you're targeted. I can assure you of that. So I mean, until we really realize that this is happening, this is abuse on a daily basis in plain sight, and it is just being camouflaged. And like, if the only thing I can see is an oversight, an independent oversight agency, so that you and I, if there's something, and the number to them to be put in full sight in the institution. That's the only thing that I see will ever make any difference in the long-term care system. And to have this going on this day and age, it's terrible. And I mean, all anybody has to do is just read the AG's report. I mean, it's not just me, or it's not just that one man. It's like, I mean, it's deplorable.
Okay. Mary, we have to leave it there because we're up to a break, but Dave has received a call off the air, and he wants to chat with you about it. Are you good if I put you on hold?
All fine. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Just 1 second now. I'll put you on hold, and Dave will talk to you next, and we're going to take a break. If you heard anything this morning that you want to weigh in on, here is your opportunity to give us a call. If there's something that you want to raise, by all means do so. And I put the question out earlier today, and we haven't really heard anything about it yet, but I asked the question about what's happening with yogurt. Apparently yogurt is hard to get these days. I haven't noticed it myself, but I don't buy a lot of it. So if anybody else has noticed, give us a call.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
So the annual moose license application process is open now and underway, and some questions are being raised about the allocation of new licenses. I see in the Telegram online, Paul Smith is raising questions about these 1,090 new licenses that have been added to the draw, and his question is, instead of sort of, being broken down scientifically among all of the regions, it looks like the Avalon Peninsula saw some of the highest increases. And he questions why that is. He wants to know why in his area, for instance, which is Bay de Verde, there's just 34 all either sex, with an increase of 80 for a total of 530. The Southern Shore, which was 36, is up 180 for a total of, Area 34 and Area 36, has a total of 1,230 bull only and 350 either sex. And so a lot of them are in the Avalon Peninsula area. But why is that? Could it be because of the relatively small area and the very busy roadways, maybe? And how is the moose fencing doing? Is that reducing the number of moose vehicle collisions we've seen? And are there any talks or plans of expanding that beyond that region? Just throwing a few topics out there as we get into the last 20 minutes or so of the program. We've been talking a lot about long-term care and some of the disturbing stories that our listeners have been sharing with us about loved ones that they feel have been neglected in some long-term care facilities. But is that the case everywhere? Or, what is your experience? Has it been a good one, a bad one? I know that long-term care, the few times that I've been into long-term care facilities, I've always been surprised of what I've encountered. I can't say it's a good situation or a bad situation. I've always been surprised. It's never quite been what I anticipated, maybe because I've allowed myself to believe, commercials that make, everybody seem like they're in long-term care and having the time of their lives. The reality is that a lot of people enter long-term care for very, serious needs. And as some of our listeners have already pointed out, some people feel that those needs are not being adequately met. Just throwing it out there. And you know what? Mary raised a really good point. And she says that there's no oversight agency to look into these things. And of course, we had a pretty damning seniors report and a damning AG report regarding long-term care and personal care homes in Newfoundland and Labrador, and some of the very serious issues that need to be addressed there. And governments and politicians and advocates have been warning for years now, not decades, but a decade or more, about this so-called, and I know it's a lot of people don't like the term, but this so-called gray tsunami, the demographic bump that goes over time of the baby boomers heading into their senior years now, and that big spike in population that is all of a sudden having these very serious healthcare and long-term care needs. And it appears as though, have we been prepared for that? Have we made the right accommodations for that? Because I think what we're seeing now in the healthcare system, among many other things, is that lack of preparedness, i.e. in long-term care homes, and the lack of beds in long-term care homes that have caused a bit of this backlog in getting people moving through the system as they should. And it comes down to staffing. And when we talk about staffing and resources, they're essentially the same thing. Do we have enough people following up, or being trained, or being recruited, or being retained? And that's another issue that we've all been talking about. And I know there are many frontline unions who are addressing these very issues with government as we speak. But what is, the solutions aren't simple, clearly, because if they were, we'd have them. But what are the solutions, and how are they being addressed? And it seems that as soon as we recruit a certain number of healthcare workers, we lose another lot. So there's no real gains. I think the nurses union once put it as, one step forward and 2 steps back. Anyway, if you want to weigh in on that, you certainly can. We're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, Dave's going to line up those calls that we're starting to get there now, and we'll come back and hear what you have to say. And we are going now to Paul Oram. Hello, Paul.
Hey, Linda, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a while since we chatted, so I figured I'd give you a call. Especially, I heard the lady call in a little earlier about long-term care, the oversight, and so on.
And you know of what you speak?
Yeah. So we own 5 personal care homes in Newfoundland and Labrador right now in Central. We are getting ready to open a 6th one, of course, in St. John's. Personal care homes are not necessarily long-term care homes, but they kind of get lumped in together at times. So I just wanted to kind of speak on that, and probably also speak on the fact that when I was in government, I kind of had an idea of how these things work. And I think that the question and issue was more about the oversight, or there being oversight within these facilities. The only thing I can tell you is that what I've seen over the years, there is a lot of oversight here. There may not be like an absolute oversight committee or commission set aside, but like the health authority site all the time. There's nurses, there's social workers, there's dietitians, physiotherapists, the list goes on. And they're in homes on a daily basis. And I would suggest, that's going on in the long-term care homes as in level 3 and higher homes as well. So I wouldn't I just don't want Newfoundlanders and Labradorians to think that there's zero oversight in long-term care, because that certainly is not the case.
No, you're right. And but should there be a one overriding agency to sort of keep an eye on things and make sure that everybody is meeting the same high level of standard?
Well, I think, if you go back to the AG report, which, I had taken issue with a lot of what the AG report had said, because again, it really did lump a lot of, if not all, personal care homes under one roof, and that wasn't fair. There's always going to be issues within any type of healthcare facility, and not only healthcare, but certainly any type of service that's provided by government or even by private individuals or private companies. To put another level of I guess you want to call it oversight in place, it may be okay. But I just felt that people may get the wrong impression that there's no oversight when there actually very much is oversight. There's some of us would argue that there's too much, and I would argue there's not, but some of my staff would argue there's too much. Seniors need to be taken care of. They are a vulnerable part of the population. But there's a thing here that's very important to remember as well. As we age and as people age, our care becomes challenging at times. And we see that within our personal care homes. And unfortunately, the reality is there are times when we cannot care for an individual because their level of care has increased so high that we're not actually licensed to care for anybody that would be that would stay on as a level 3 or even go to like a level 4. But, understanding the challenges that people face as they age in terms of incontinence and these kind of things, I do believe that, it's not a simple, easy fix to make everything perfect within long-term care. And I'm not even talking about personal care homes that we have. I'm talking about government-run long-term care. I believe government does have a commitment to trying to do the very best they can do for seniors in Newfoundland and Labrador. And not only this government, of course, other governments before. I want people to understand that government does, I believe, hear what people are saying. I know my discussions with the minister's office, even in the last number of days, has been very, very positive in terms of wanting to ensure that people get proper care and want to ensure that people are happy in their environment and having activities and doing things that make them happy. However, there's a level of care, a place where a senior will go to, such a high level of care that they probably can't really enjoy any of these types of things at all. So then it's more of a comfort care. You're trying to provide as much comfort as possible, and even having said that, that is challenging at times. But there is complete oversight there in terms of, the health authorities. They do a good job in ensuring that there's oversight in what happens with our seniors that are placed in long-term care or personal care homes.
So when you talk about, people aging and their needs changing, and sometimes they change, as you indicated, rather rapidly. So what provisions are there in a personal care home, for instance, where suddenly one of your tenants or your patients' needs change, and yet there's no place for them in long-term care? I mean, how do you fill that gap?
That is a really good question. So in the past number of years, government has stepped up to the plate a fair bit on this. So the process, what will happen normally is either the home, the manager at one of our homes, or like my wife's a nurse, and we have 2 nurses on staff, sometimes 3. And so they will, assess an individual that appears to need more care, just on a quick assessment basis, and they'll call the community health nurse. Now, don't forget, there's a community health nurse in our homes every single day. So, they'll call that nurse. She'll come, she or he will come in, and they will do an assessment, a reassessment on the person. They'll deem that person, they need level 3 care. And you're right, a lot of times there aren't any level 3 beds available. So what government will do then is they will allow that level 3 resident to stay in a personal care home until a bed becomes available. The problem is that when an individual becomes so difficult to care for within that setting, within the personal care home setting, and then we have sometimes no other alternative but to send them to a hospital, and the hospital then has to keep them until they can get into a level 3. There's where the problem lies. Government recognizes it. Again, governments have recognized this for a while. It's certainly gotten a lot worse in the last number of years. So, right now I know that government is looking for a way to deal with this issue, and we definitely need more long-term care beds or alternate levels of care beds. And we are really, the government, I should say, is very much looking at that and trying to fix that issue. But yeah, I mean, if you want to look at an issue, no doubt about it, that is a concern. But personal care homes do hold on to residents way into their level 3 days. In fact, we are paid a little extra for taking care of them to our staff for having extra staff for higher levels of care. So it's a process that we're going through, and I think that everybody's got to realize as well that Newfoundland and Labrador's population has aged quite rapidly. Yes, we did see it coming. Did we do enough about it? Probably not. It seems like most governments, most businesses for the most part are reactive rather than proactive. And not only that, of course, this comes with a huge cost. So trying to balance out our tax base and balance out a sensible and good level of care for our seniors and residents in Newfoundland and Labrador, quite frankly, that need to use hospital care, that is the challenge we face. And this is the reason why projects like Theta Nord is so important for Newfoundland and Labrador. And we need to continue to find ways to increase our revenue to be able to pay for all these things that are happening in our province. And certainly an aging population is making it more and more difficult.
Demographically, are we prepared for when these numbers start to decline?
You mean decline in regards of less seniors?
Because we're seeing this bubble come through, I suppose, that is the baby boomer generation, right? So, that will change, I would imagine, in the next 10 to 15 years. So, I mean, you said governments are more reactive than proactive. If we start putting more resources in now, then all of a sudden we're going to have an abundance of these facilities and no need.
Absolutely right. So, I think what you're going to see with government moving forward, and again, I don't have inside information. I can tell you that for sure. I do have discussions with people that anybody else can have discussions with for the most part. But I can tell you that in terms of government building more infrastructure, I think you're going to see probably less of that and more of trying to create care packages within other facilities that we have. Like as in our personal care homes, our end date plan would be to convert those personal care homes to maybe apartment buildings. It may be hotels. We have a plan in place. For years, government just kept building long-term care homes. I don't think that's the solution, because you're right. Within 15 to 20 to 25 years, this is going to tip off and go the other way. So, government, I know, are very, very much aware of this fact. We as an industry, we're aware of the fact, obviously, and we're trying to grapple with how we deal with this in the 15 or 25-year period, or after the 15 or 25-year period. The issue is we still have to deal with what's going on today. So that reality has got to be dealt with. And, again, I believe that our industry has a good grasp on that in terms of trying to make it work better. I mean, we care for people now that we never did care for back. I've been in this business for 30 years. We didn't care for level 3s at all. When a person turned level 3, they had to go to the hospital, and they had to wait for 18 to 24 months. Today, government will allow them to stay in our homes. They've increased the levels of care to include enhanced care, which is between level 3 and the high level 2. So, government, it's not that they haven't recognized it, it's that this is a real big process, and a real big number of people that have aged very quickly, and they need this care.
And do you have a good, obviously, I mean, you're a former politician, you're a former cabinet minister, but so you know the processes behind the scenes. Does that help you in helping government to understand what the needs are?
Absolutely. I can't suggest that it didn't help me. I do understand the processes that are involved, and many people don't understand the processes. And I don't suggest they should know the process. It would be difficult to understand what a person would see after being in government for many years, and certainly being a health minister, even for a short time that I was there, the process, you can say to do this, but usually when you think we should do this and this is the right thing, there's 5 things behind it that will change and make that not work. So, I understand that process, and I understand that we're not always happy with the process, but there is a process that has to take place. And again, I mentioned earlier about the fact that...
Sorry, Paul, we're out of time.
I'm probably going over, I know, Linda.
We're up to news time. I'm sorry about that, and it's a hard stop, so we have to leave it there. But Paul, thanks for your input. Stay in touch, will you?
We will, for sure. You take care of yourself, and thanks to VOCM for always being that place where we can voice our concerns.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Right.
And Paul Oram has had the last word on VOCM Open Line this morning. Thanks, everyone, for your calls. We'll be back tomorrow. Do join us then.